normally what happens in these cycles is you have a bad economy, which leads to foreclosures. Well, this time it's a little bit reverse. You had massive waves of foreclosures that started happening about 3 years ago that then triggered an economic collapse that is now triggering even more foreclosures. So we're sort of getting a double whammy. And I was chair of banking in the state assembly for about 2.5 years. I requested to be chair of banking because at the time I viewed our banking system as one of the pillars of American strength. I wanted to make it better. It was the envy of the world, and that's why I requested to be chair. After I was chair for a few months, I started looking at this data coming in that was just monumentally scary. And I would see these foreclosure numbers roll in, and I started talking to these bank CEOs, to their lobbyists, and so on, and I started looking at their practices. It became apparent to me a lot of what the banks are doing was just indefensible. And if you recall, about 4 or 5 years ago, you could get a home loan under one criteria. If you breathe oxygen, you got a home loan, right? And that's illegal. They can't do that. That's one reason Countrywide was sued and got in a settlement. And the scale of this crisis is so large, especially in California. We are ground zero for home foreclosures. We provide about 1/3 of the nation's foreclosures, averaging 80 to 90,000 foreclosure filings every month. If you do the math, that's about 1 every 30 seconds. So until we mitigate that, our economic recovery is just not going to begin. And so I started carrying a series of bills. I started to do hearings highlighting some of the deficiencies and indefensible practices that banks are doing. I got one of the bills signed earlier this year. It's called the California Foreclosure Prevention Act. There's no other bill like this in the nation. And what it does is it basically gives banks a choice. It says you can run a comprehensive loan modification program designed to help keep people from going into foreclosure. Or if you choose not to do that, we're going to punish you with a 90-day foreclosure moratorium. And most lenders and banks hate moratoriums, so they're going to want to do these modification programs. And the goal is to get banks to systematically do modification programs across California. I carried another bill that is in the process, it's on the Senate side, that reforms some of the worst practices in the subprime industry. One of them is called steering, and some of you may have been victims of it. It's when a broker or a bank acting as a broker gives you a home loan that is either higher interest rate or riskier than what you otherwise had qualified for because they got more commission. My bill bans that. It also puts in fiduciary duties on the part of the broker. It also regulates prepayment penalties. And so for all my work on taking on Wall Street and doing these bills, I was removed as chair of banking last year. I was quote-unquote promoted as chair of rules, but I keep fighting because I believe it's the right thing to do, and hopefully I'll get some more of these bills signed. But specifically on the California Foreclosure Prevention Act, it went into effect a few weeks ago. The Department of Corporations, 2 of the representatives are here, is charged with administering this act, and it is to make sure that the banks run these loan modification programs so that we can help keep you from going into foreclosure, or your friends or people that you know. Now, there are going to be people that are just going to be foreclosed upon regardless of what we can do. Obviously, if you're unemployed, have no stream of income, there's very little the government can do for you. But there are people that are on the bubble, that if you just had some more help, or if we could stop the interest rate from adjusting upwards, or if we could extend your loan term maybe from 15 to 30 years or 30 years to 40 years, that we can keep the family in the home. And the reason we want to do this is because foreclosures are probably one of the most inefficient market mechanisms humankind's ever designed. For every foreclosure, right, we get all sorts of fees being paid. We get the family that gets dislocated. We then get these homes that flood the market, destabilizing the real estate market. Then they become empty, they become blight, and then it's a public safety problem. So it's a lose, 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 lose proposition all around. And I actually don't care why someone is going to foreclosure, whether they knew exactly what they were doing when they got the loan, or if they were hoodwinked, or if they were scammed. It doesn't matter to me. I'm doing these bills as an economic response to economic crisis, because if we can stop foreclosures, it will help California's economy. And specifically, the way that this bill works, it's now in effect. Most banks have agreed to run these comprehensive loan modification programs. It doesn't mean that each individual family will get a loan modification, but it means a bank will look at you seriously, and if they can get your income within a certain range and the monthly payments down to a certain range, they will make that modification, and hopefully you can stay in your homes. Now, that's the state efforts. On the federal side, the Obama administration has rolled out a few programs, and the federal government can do an amazing thing that states can't do. They can print money, right? So the federal government is giving cash incentives for some of these loan servicers to modify home loans, and to these banks to modify people's loans. There's two programs. One deals with refinancings, and it basically says, the original version that came out said is, if your home is underwater by 5%, right? So let's say your home is worth $100,000, but the loan value is $105,000, then you could qualify under the program and get that refinanced and put yourself into a better loan. We thought it was a little bit silly because 5% underwater mostly doesn't apply to anyone here. I mean, Riverside is hit so hard. So I actually went to D.C. earlier this year and lobbied to increase that to at least 150%. Didn't quite get that, but the Obama administration recently, just a few weeks, announced that they have increased it to 125% underwater ratio. So hopefully it might help some folks here. Second part of the federal program is simply a loan modification program for people that are at the bubble, that have got a little bit more assistance, can stay in for another 20, 30 years. I have here, and it's also on the table, it's the Home Mortgage Crisis Brochure. There's a series of numbers here that can help you. If you are in difficulty, or if you know people who are in difficulty, there are three things that suggest that you do. One is you should call a counselor. There are nonprofit counselors out there that will help assist you. You can call 1-877-HOPE-NOW. The number is here. And they will locate the counselor nearest to where you live. And then that counseling agency will work with you to try to see if they can modify your loan. Second thing you can do is you can call your bank or loan servicer directly, because many of them have an incentive to try to fix your loan, because a foreclosed loan doesn't really help anybody. And if they can keep you in the home, at least they're getting a stream of income. And then the third thing that you can do is, if you believe that your bank is being really unfair to you, you can hire an attorney. There are some reputable law firms out there that have gotten some pretty good results in terms of home loan modifications. There are also some that have not gotten very good results, so you have to be careful in how you do that. So those are some of their programs that are working, or actually they're in existence right now. The Obama administration is looking at additional funding to try to help some of these homeowners, because I think they've all realized the scale of this crisis. It is monumental. It is on a scale that most people just have not seen before. And now we're compounding it with unemployment. And in California, we've hit 11.6 unemployment, which is going to lead to even more foreclosures. So at some point, we have to break this cycle, or otherwise our economy is just not going to recover.